taking much of anything too seriously. He was a jokester and liked to play around. He was cute, and so much softer than his half-brother. He looked for trouble and liked to cause a ruckus because he was bored in that fancy school and didn't care about gaining anyone's favor. He was the ultimate rebel, and my very best friend in the whole wide world from the time I could walk until the moment I betrayed him. He wasn't the kind of guy who popped up in fairy tales very often. He was too goofy, and his unpredictable temper could be scary. He generally saved his anger for only one person, his brother. But when it was unleashed, he was like a whole different person. For me, he was always the hero in every situation and story. There wasn't a person with whom I wanted to spend all my time, or one I looked up to more than the second son. Next to my mother, he was my favorite part of my forever conflicted life, much to the annoyance of the supposedly perfect son. One treated me like a beloved little sister and watched out for me from the get-go. The other treated me like a possession, like something that belonged to him and him alone. I figured out the hard way that it was very possible to be caught between right and wrong. Anyone removed from obscene wealth would think those two things were absolute, with no room for interpretation. When money was involved, right was more like a suggestion, and wrong was a judgment call. I lost count of how many times the second son was punished for outshining the first, simply because it made the family look bad. It was predetermined who was supposed to shine and who was supposed to fade away. But the bastard child had nothing to lose, so he refused to play by the rules that were created against him. I grew immune to the legitimate son, receiving praise for abhorrent behavior. He was a bully and a beast, and his mother encouraged the hell out of him, making everyone around him feel like they were less than, especially his half-brother. I was enamored with one boy and terrified of the other. I lived my life like a human ping-pong ball, bouncing back and forth between them. One was my savior, the other an enemy I couldn't escape. One tried to protect me with everything he had, while the other used my one and only weakness, my mother, to manipulate me and make me behave exactly the way he wanted. If my life were a fairy tale, when the second son promised me a life beyond everything I knew, I would have believed him. I would have waited and trusted that there was going to be a happily ever after, at least for one of us. But my life was more like a horror story. The golden child always got his way, and not only did I throw away my life and any chance at happiness, I also betrayed the only boy who ever made me feel like I belonged. In the end, I was more of a villain than the perfect, wicked boy I hated with every fiber of my being ever was. Chapter 1. Ollie. But you're a girl. It wasn't the second or even third time the very cute boy who answered the door had muttered the exact same phrase. I had knocked and announced I was the new roommate moving in today. He looked adorably dumbfounded, and the other boy standing in the entrance to the living room with his arms over his wide, muscular chest looked very annoyed. I had expected pretty much this exact reaction since I'd gone out of my way to make sure the current residents of the house didn't know my gender when I filled out the rental application a few weeks ago. The ad clearly stated a male roommate was preferred, and it was common knowledge on campus that this particular house had a no girls allowed rule. Apparently it was how the boys who had all lived together in this house since they finished freshman year kept the peace and managed to remain friends rather than rivals all these years. One of the roommates had graduated an entire year early, leaving the other 3 boys behind, and left a vacant room in the converted Victorian a couple blocks away from campus. It was a highly coveted rental, so surely I wasn't the only female applicant hoping for a chance to get past their gender preference. But my reasons for pushing so hard to get picked had little to do with the location, and everything to do with one of the current occupants. I sighed and cast a dramatic look down the length of my body. I am a girl, no matter how many times you say it or how hard he glares at me. I hooked my thumb in the direction of the glowering football player hovering behind him.